Welcome to another installment of Elections Insights. I am Wendell Jeffrey, and we continue to monitor the clock as we run down to the September 4th elections here in Guyana. Tonight in the studio, we're going to have two folks. One is already here, and I'm going to introduce him, a young man, very impressive. And he'll tell you his story and why he supports the party he supports and why he would like to get you to join him with that support. And so without any further ado, let me welcome Mr. Alfonso, the Armas. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me here, Wendell.
You're welcome. You're welcome, my brother. Look sharp as usual. All right, so we're going to have a discussion. As we begin, I want you to tell the audience something that you don't think they know about you as a way of an introduction.
Something that they don't know about me.
That you don't think they know about you.
I speak 3 languages. I speak English, French, and Spanish.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was in university, I didn't quite know what to do, and so I minored in French literature.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you write it and speak it?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm glad.
now everybody knows.
Yes, now everybody knows. All right. So you're here representing the People's Progressive Party.
Yes.
Why the People's Progressive Party?
You know, I don't come from a family, from a household that traditionally supported the People's Progressive Party. Growing up, the PPP was a cuss word. You know, we were always in an atmosphere where, you know, there were prayer meetings, you know, praying for the downfall of the party. You know, the People's Progressive Party was evil, and so I grew up steeped in this sort of culture and political beliefs. But the more I started to analyze and see things for myself, especially in the period between 2015 and 2020, when, you know, you actually got to experience and to see the policies, if you can call them that were implemented by the then APNU coalition, and to compare those and to compare their results against the track record of the People's Progressive Party. I mean, it was a no-brainer, really. When you compare both track records, it makes sense logically, through reason, to support the PPP.
Okay. You're a young man.
Yes. Youngish.
Youngish. You have lived outside of Guyana for a while.
Yes.
And you still think that the PPP is the best thing for Guyana.
Absolutely.
Give me an example.
I had a debate. I had a conversation with some friends, because I have a lot of friends that don't necessarily support the PPP yet, and they were asking me or telling me, why do we focus on the past, on track records so much? And I said, well, because the best, you know, a party's currency is really what it does when it has the opportunity, not what it sits and promises, because you can promise people the world. It is what matters is what actually gets done when they have the opportunity to. And so when you analyze what the People's Progressive Party has done from 1992 to now, right, well, obviously we had those 5 lost years, the People's Progressive Party navigated Guyana away from the brink of collapse. Those of us who are familiar with Guyana's economic history will know that our economy was in ruins. And so the party, the government then navigated our country from the brink of collapse to one of the most vibrant economies in the world at the time that they lost the elections in 2015. Compare that to the next 5 years, taxes were increased. Taxes on education, taxes on electricity, taxes on data, on healthcare. They strangled, those policies strangled the life out of the economy, out of the livelihoods of thousands and thousands and thousands of Guyanese. So now you have that to compare to. Compare that again now to what happened between 2020 and 2025. the PPP government quite literally transformed the landscape of the country. Bridges, huge bridges from where, rise from the rivers where nothing was before. We have highways and ports and all of these and all of these things. In addition to providing direct support to the vulnerable in our society, right? So it's really a no-brainer. When you compare parties' track records, there's only one logical choice.
All right. Let me ask you a futuristic question. What do you think? Give me two issues that you think should prioritize the upcoming elections. I mean, there might be several, but top of the mind.
Yes, how we intend to take the revenues from oil, right, and create a lasting future, create lasting wealth for our children. I see, by now almost every party has dropped or has released some form of a manifesto. There's, the Win Party dropped their manifesto and so on. But all of those parties, they're just focused on spending, how the oil revenues are going to be spent. It's all spend, spend, spend. There are no plans really that address how you're going to create lasting wealth for our children, for Guyana's children, for our future, using the oil revenues. You see, the party considers the oil revenues important, yes, but they're not wealth in and of by them and of themselves, right? They have to be harnessed to directly to provide support for the vulnerable in our society, yes, but also to invest in Guyana's future, right? And I think that is one of the most crucial things that will decide Guyana's future.
How the oil wealth is invested and
I wouldn't say
applied.
oil wealth, I'd say oil revenues.
Oil revenue,
yes,
okay.
are invested to create a wealth base for our country.
Is there another?
Well, I just want to say, oil is a finite and very volatile resource.
Correct.
So what happens post-oil? If we spend everything now, what are we going to be doing in 20, 30 years?
Okay. Is there another thing that jumps out at you that should be a priority for the upcoming elections issues?
It's all tied in there, but how we are going to harness the power of youth. When you look at 2015 to 2020, the youth were really left by the wayside. So there were little to no investments, despite all these golden promises by David Granger and his crew back then. So I think that is another important issue, and we see that. We've seen the 39,000 gold scholarships. We've seen now the Because We Care cash grants, which really make education more accessible to everybody, right? UG is now free. There's more emphasis on TVET and on skill building. There's skill gaps in our economy. Focusing on educating the youth through building skills is really another important issue, and it's important that we use our country's resources to invest in our future like that.
Okay. How do you think what do you think is the appeal to young people to the PPP party at this time? I mean, vis-a-vis the other parties that are competing for their attention and for their support. How would you weigh the appeal, the gravity of the appeal between the PPP and the others who are trying to get their attention?
Look, the PPP has made a conscious effort to appeal more broadly and more directly to a wider cross-section of Guyanese society. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. But people also naturally want to be associated with success. This is a party that has quite literally, as I said before, transformed Guyana's landscape. That has done so much in by the way of offering opportunities to young people that are not necessarily that don't necessarily come from traditional PPP strongholds, so to speak. People want to be associated with that success. That's so important and so crucial, and that is a huge part of the reason why there's been this move by non-traditional supporters of the party to now not just support in private, but to publicly support.
Okay. Do you think that the newfound revenue from the oil has given the PPP the impetus to do a number of the things that they're doing, and how should that be managed? And I'm asking that in light of the fact that a number of the other parties are suggesting that they can give more than PPP is giving right now.
Yeah, for them it's a game of one-upmanship, right? The PPP the PPP's plans are grounded in reality. They are realistic. They are grounded in a realistic, I would say, macroeconomic framework. So when we plan or promise something, it is something that is realistic. It is not based on fantasy or one-upmanship, right? And so when we promise, for example, that you know, because we care cash grants are going to increase, the numbers there are not chosen at random, at whim, to sound fancy and to appeal to people, but they're grounded in the realities of Guyana's economy, future inflows of revenues, and the other things that are important for our country to invest in. Okay. The others clearly are now just one-upmanship. So in the last 5 years, for example, the threshold was increased to 135,000. The others are saying 400,000 without really costing it out. That is going to completely wipe out a huge section of the tax base. How are you going to fund this? And on top of that, they're promising, you know, $100,000 cash grant per month. That is about a third of this year's budget. So when you combine that, you combine the income tax thresholds, it quickly becomes evident that none of those proposals, none of those promises is based on any sort of reality. It's all fantasy. It's all fantasy. It's all a game of, it's all shadows, you know. They have no intention. And even if they have an intention, it's not possible. It's not possible. They have not worked those things out. Those are just ad hoc promises that are made to sound good and to appeal to people. But it doesn't make sense.
I'll drill down some more. I'm happy to have in the studio also Mr. Bond, James Bond.
Good to see you.
How are you doing, my brother?
Good to see you,
all
sir.
All right. I see you busy.
Yes, just rushed off from Durban and Louisa Road there. Public meeting, the first time ever. Bishop Hedgel is speaking there, Minister Waldron. You had Mr. David Williams as well, and myself speaking. So, and the crowd was energetic. Good vibe. Good vibe.
Good vibe. All right. So take a breath. One of the questions I ask all the persons who I interview is to look in the camera and tell the folks something that you think they might not know about you.
That's a lot, bro. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Most persons don't know that I write poetry.
You write poetry.
And I'm Ghana Prize Literature nominee. I write short stories. There you go. Yeah. Wrote about 3 manuscripts.
Wow.
Working to get them published right now. So
all right.
Most persons don't know that.
You know, James, you come with a lot of history, political history.
Yeah.
But in these interviews that I do, I perceive that some of the people who might be listening don't really know you. And they don't know the causative factors for some of the decisions that you make. So let me ask, why the PPP?
Who else? That's an easy one. Which other party? Historically, being a good student of history, the PPP-Civic being formed in 1950, the only party with the history of Guyana is actually the history of the PPP. The political history of Guyana is the history of the PPC. Now, the formation of it, coming from bringing together various factions, from trade unions, civil service, politicians, ordinary Guyanese, rank and file Guyanese, coming together to not only struggle for a better living of Guyanese, but for independence. And that in itself is a history we can't ignore. We pulled together Lyndon Forbes, Samson Burnham, Dr. Chetty Jagan, Mr. Ben's father, slips my name sometimes, Brittany Ben, Ashton Chase, Janet Jagan, so many stalwarts. Who could ignore that history? So just for historical purposes, the PPP-Civic. In terms of contemporary politics, who else? They have the best president in Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali.
That's right.
Visionary, transformational, servant type leader. They have Brigadier Mark Phillips, who has a wealth of experience in the civil service, military service, decades of military service, being the chief of staff. And you have the best politician in Caribbean, Dr. Barry Jaglio as his vice president. So who else to actually go as a young politician? Where else do I go?
It's funny you'd say that you're young with so much political history.
Right?
So I appreciate that. Yeah. Tell me a little about, because I'm listening to you rattle off with a lot of curiosity the history of the PPP. But you were not always a member of the PPP party.
Right.
When did the light bulb go off and what caused it to go off?
Most persons don't know that the first party I actually was around was the PPP-Civic.
Meaning what?
That when I came back from Trinidad, law school, I was with the PPP-Civic. I was, my friends were Jason Abdul and Kwame McCoy, and these guys, I went to John and Jackson's funeral. So the first party I actually was around was the People's Progressive Party Civic. The reason I went to the PNC was because of a man called Winston Shree Paul Murray, who was then the chairman of the PNC. He and I would have a lot of back and forths in court as to the direction of the PNC, because I'm a person like to look at it from both sides. So I was telling him the opposition was malaise, lazy, not effective enough, etc. And he says, you know something, you got a lot to say, young man. Why don't you get involved? I never got involved with the PNC politics until he decided to run for leadership of the PNC. And that's when I got involved with the PNC. But most persons know that the first part I was actually around was the People's Progressive Party Civic.
What are a couple of things that you think should be frontal as you go into the next election? What are two things that you think the party should be focusing on as a catalyst for winning the votes and the confidence of the electorate? Two things. I mean, they're number.
Could I be brutally honest?
I want you to be brutally honest.
The party has done enough to win the confidence of the Guyanese people.
Yes.
It's not been 5 years of nothingness.
Wait. I'm going to do something that I don't normally do.
You could interrupt.
A friend of mine under the last administration, I can mention his name, he's dead now, Mr. Khan, that ran the public relations officer for the last administration. He told me, when I asked him a question like that, he answered the question almost like you said, that the Granger administration didn't have to prove anything, that people can just look around and see what they did, and they lost the election. So don't fall for that. I'm asking you.
And I'll answer again the same way.
You want to answer again?
I'll answer the same way.
All
I'll
right.
say the proof is in the eating of the pudding. Mm-hmm. And as good Christians, we're admonished that you recognize people by their fruits.
Okay.
He said, by their fruits you shall know them. There's not been a more visible manifestation of progress and development in the history of our country that has occurred in the past 3 years. No government has built more schools. No government has built more hospitals. No other government has built more roads, transformed more lives, promoted more police officers than the People's Progressive Party Civic regime. So the proof is in the pudding.
I'm going to come back to you, but I'm going to give Alfonso a swipe at this here. I'm going to ask you a question based on what your counterpart is saying. If the proof is in the pudding, the proof is in the eating, and by the fruits and all the scriptural and proverbial anecdotes he's putting out, why do we have the Win Party that has gained so much steam in 3 months? If according to your partner, and I'm playing contrary partners here because I can ask him the question, there is something that has not killed the PNC APNU, and there is something that has mitigated the reason for the Win Party to have the traction it's having. And if we're saying, okay, the PPP, we don't have to say what they did, we just have to, everybody can just look around, explain what is happening, the dynamics of what's happening there.
Well, first, I want to challenge what you're saying about traction. What you're seeing is traction in the media, in the social media sphere, right? But when you're actually on the ground talking to people, I would challenge that their traction is magnified through social media, but on the ground talking to people around the place, then they don't have as much traction. But that said,
you remember the question?
Yeah. That said, their leader is really a man who who spent, from what I've seen, I don't know him personally, and I really don't wish to. I like my visa. But is really a man who spent most of his life in a playboy, see his social media from before he was sanctioned, with fast cars and yachts and so on, not really caring much for the people. The minute he got in trouble, and some serious trouble, those Magnitsky sanctions from OFAC are pretty serious. Then now you're in fight for your family's life, for your family's business, and for your and for your welfare. So you've allegedly, taken $10 billion from the Treasury. Why not spend a little bit of it and gain support? This is not particular to Guyana. You see this example in Colombia when Pablo Escobar, this very quite famous drug dealer and narco trafficker and smuggler, he did the same thing. Took some of his ill-gotten gains and spent it on buying support from people. It's the same effect that we see in Guyana.
So you think, because again, don't lose the premise of the question, right? And it is almost a softball question that I'm asking. The APNU isn't dead, and wind is getting traction. And I'm going to go back to your counterpart, but I'm just giving you a chance to let him cool his head because he's rushing from another environment right now. Something is still happening that is causing these parties to remain alive. And I'm trying to find out, what is it?
There's always, like I said earlier, there's always a section, there's historically been a section of Ghanaian society that are naysayers, that don't like the PPP for various reasons. Like I told you, I grew up in a house where the People's Progressive Party was considered evil. It was a cuss word. There's a wide cross section of Ghanaian society that feel, or that perhaps have been let down by the APNU. Right? Clearly, they're very discontented with the lack of leadership there and how they've ran in opposition and when they were in government. Who, for whatever reason, they don't come from a place yet where they support the PPP. Not through reason, but because historically they just they've been let down by the PNC. So who else to support? This guy who's buying support with his ill-gotten gains,
Okay. All right. Over to you now. I've been asking him your questions.
When is easy to explain. My good comrade here touching it a bit in his last answer. Disgruntled. A number of WIN supporters find themselves out of the loop of either the PPP-C or the APNU coalition, and predominantly is the coalition. The majority of the
Almost
persons
entirely
who have gravitated toward WIN are from APNU, AFC, because, as my learned friend said, in the communities they were not committed to improving their lot. But I like to run into WIN supporters. I love running into them, because every WIN supporter I've met, I've convinced them to join the People's Party-Civic. He came into Melanie too. And you had some youngsters with flags, and you had some youngsters supporting them. They're all at Durban rally right now. Because I tell them one simple thing. If you have a child who's sick, do you take your child to the doctor or the garbage man? They say, I take my child to the doctor. So I said, in politics, the same thing. You put the best person possible who could do the job. Now, President Irfan Ali has served as a minister, has served as a president. Are you going to risk this country with someone who has zero experience in leadership, zero experience in running a government, zero experience in anything? So when you talk about win, I'll ask you a question. Which region is win winning? Which region is win winning? The elections are won by votes, not sentiment. And there's something called in politics underdog policy, underdog philosophy. People always love the underdog. It happens in sports, it happens all the way. You see, the PNC and the PPP is two giants. And they're always looking for some David. But the David is not win. The David is not win. So very simply, you always have somebody that comes up who wants to say they're challenging the establishment. I want to remind people that everything Win does is benefiting the PPP. Politically, as a political strategist, Win is now making it possible for us to win Region 4 and Region 10. Regions the People's Progressive Party Civic have never won. They now have a chance because the PNC is now splintered into AFC, ALP, Forward Guyana, and Win. Only the People's Progressive Party Civic has remained the monolith. They've remained the monolith, and they've gathered votes. They have people like German Figuera from London, James Bond from the East Coast, Tandai McAllister from the West, Gita Chandan from Berbice, Mark Light is in Berbice. So when you talk about a force and a party, even to Nigel Hughes says, PP-Civic will win. Even to Mark DeFrance says, the PP-Civic will win. Because they've remained a monolith, a united party, and have gathered support in every single region. So Win is doing a fantastic job for the People's Progressive Party Civic.
I had an interview with some folks who thinks that the election is probably going to end with some majority-minority government. And in a case like that, they would be prepared to partner or to share governance with Win. Is the PPP open to, if it came down to that, to working together with the Win party, even though there are some sanctions and some ethical challenges as highlighted by the PPP? Is the PPP open to that?
Well, you know, I can't speak for the PP Civic, and I won't even dare answer that, sir. Yeah. I won't dare answer that.
Yeah. So you didn't do any of those. But personally, what do you guys think personally? If the people choose, because election is about democracy, so if the people choose to vote in a way that is contrary to what the internal polling might be showing, would you guys personally be open to
no, we'll be putting the future of Guyana at risk. You know, this is a guy, a family who's sanctioned, who is persona non grata amongst some of our most important, most strategic allies. How if he cannot be in a room negotiating or talking about Guyana's the border controversy, for example, right? These are some of the most important issues, right? How can we work with somebody like that? We cannot. We can't. We can't. The guy is persona non grata around the world. How can we sit in a room with him, talking about Guyana's future, talking about issues that matter to our people, to the region, when he can't even get into a room with our most strategic, important allies? It can't happen. I don't see it happening.
The same answer. The U.S. ambassador made it clear, persons did not see the depth into which she went to say, look, we have a partnership with the Guyana government. We can't tell you who to put in your National Assembly or to put in your parliament, and we may not be able to even to choose who your friends may be, but we have a relationship with you. And if you were to elect Mr. Muhammad, even as a member of parliament, given that Montesquieu says there's three arms of government: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So even though you were on the opposition side in parliament, you're still part of government. So the U.S. ambassador is being very clear and says, look, do not risk the relationship you have with me. You see what the pressure they're now putting on Maduro.
Oh, yeah.
Do not risk the U.S. saying, look, I want nothing to do with you. Given you have Venezuela nipping at your heels, you want to go in the directions that Maduro went. Do not risk that. So personally, I would take the advice, as counsel normally gives advice, I would take the advice of the U.S. ambassador to stay clear of any sanctioned individuals, especially when we have so much at risk and so much to lose. Our territorial integrity is so important to us now that Venezuela is committed to responding and engaging the ICJ in its proper courses. We can't afford to lose a support as that of the United States of America, not this time.
You say, James, and I'm gonna ask Alfonso the question, but it's based on something you said. When you run into the WIN folks, there's some questions that you ask them. So Alfonso, here's a question. Can you articulate a couple of things that should make a young person choose the PPP as opposed to another party?
Yes, because our policies are not centered just on giving you money, although that is important, right? Direct support to the vulnerable in society, people who need a boost up, but because our policies are designed to invest in your future, through education, through opportunities, by giving you the opportunities to unleash to unleash yourself, really, to make yourself better, to give you the freedom to do that, right? There's nothing more liberating than taking advantage of all the opportunities that are coming your way, that are here already, and making something better of yourself, for your family, for your community, and for your country. Only the PPP's policies and plans are geared to do that, right? To develop our human resource, to invest in our human resource so that we can transform Guyana. Only the PPP's policies do that. The others are all focused on giveaways and consumption and spending and spending and spending. But there is no cohesive framework that puts everything together, use the revenues, the resources at our disposal right now to invest in our physical infrastructure and our human resource, our young people.
You want to expand on that, James?
Yes, you have to, when you speak about young people and governance, you have to look at things that matter to young people. The first thing that matters to a young person is education. The government has increased education by some almost 300% from what it was under AP and UFC. The government has built a number of schools. They're now building about 47 secondary schools, about 60-something nursery schools. Primary schools, about 40-something primary schools. They've made university free, paying for CAPE. Now they're going to be introducing transportation allowances for persons going to school. So education matters most to a young person. Gold scholarships, 30-something thousand gold scholarships, free. I grew up poor, lived in Mabaruma, Northwest District. Sometimes I went to school barefooted. I know of days in which my parents could only send me to school with just transportation and maybe a snack money, so to speak. When I grew older, wanted to become a historian, my mom said, go do law. But how could we pay to do law? In those times, law was $300,000 a year. My parents couldn't afford it. I had to get a scholarship to do law. My sister did law too, but she didn't get a scholarship. They had to mortgage their home to pay for my sister to do law. Today, a young person could do law for free. Think about what that does to an average youngster. Now, progress is not something that is immediate. Progress is progress, and something systematic takes some time. But what the government has been able to achieve in these 3 years to ensure that every single Guyanese has access to quality education. These schools are not only built in Region 4. We know about the St. George's School of Science. We know about Christ Church. We see the multilateral school just being built over. It's going to be state-of-the-art with football stadium and synthetic track. But we see these schools in Region 1, in Region 9, Region 10, 7, and 8. So this government is ensuring, and this is what One Guyana is about, a part of One Guyana, to ensure what you have in the hinterland, you have on the coastland. To ensure what happens to the Amerindian child, happens to the Afro-Guyanese child, the East Indian Guyanese child. So education is, I think, the bedrock of what the success will be for every young person. And that is the primary and most significant investment of this government. Now, another thing the government is doing, which I'm excited about, is the creative arts. Government has promised, and you know when the PPP-Civic makes a promise, it keeps it. They've promised to look into copyright. They've promised to incentivize creativity in this country. So our performers, those dancers and the talented people, the poets and the singers, they will now have not only a chance to practice their craft and hone their skills, but they'll be incentivized, they'll be paid, they'll be given grants to do these kind of things. One other thing before you cut me. Another thing that a young person wants to do is create some amount of wealth for himself and his family. We all dream about becoming rich. Now I want to ask you, you've probably heard more presidents speak than I did. Which other president in this country said to the Guyanese people, I want you to be wealthy? None. There have been no other president but Muhammad Irfan Ali that has said to the Guyanese people, I want you to be wealthy. So what is the president going to do? He's going to create a small, medium business development fund for people, young people who want to grow their business. It's not going to be like a bank where you go and you have to pay back interest and all that. This will be interest-free money to fund your ideas. The president also spoke about a digitalized country. Now we are living in an age of technology. The president says, look, I want you to be first world in every single thing. So those three things, right. I could go on more, but
I realize that like these are just some conversations, right? I'm not wearing my journalistic hat. I'm letting you guys get away. Not you as in you alone, but everybody who's sitting there. But information
is key. Someone bring out the information.
Right. I'm just saying that this is not a true interview. I would not let you go as long as you're going now. But we're talking, right? And I'm letting the people hear. I'm letting the people hear from you. Now, so let me flip this now. You speak so passionately about the benefits of the PPP being the next government. Envision a country where the PPP is not the next government. I'll let you go, Alfonso. See if you could flip the script in your head. I know it's counter to what's happening in your head this time, but paint that picture.
I love that question, by the way.
Okay, look.
I love that question.
Let's ground this in some sort of reality. I know this is purely a hypothetical, a disastrous hypothetical, but I have spent some time going through the expenditures and the budgets of the last APNU administration, right? They continue to say, the reason that we didn't do as well and the reason that we failed the reason that we failed the Guyanese was because we didn't have oil money. But when you analyze how they spent what they did, right? First of all, they burdened the Guyanese with crazy taxes. They taxed the life out of the economy. Education, healthcare, data, water, electricity. And the revenues that they raised from those onerous taxes, did they spend them on building schools, classrooms, hospitals, clinics, infrastructure? Absolutely not. They spent the money, they reallocated it towards dietary, towards domestic travel, towards perks. So it's not as if they didn't have oil money and they couldn't invest in the country's future. There's a ratio in looking at those budgets, right? The amount of money that they spend on consumption versus on capital expenditure. And this is a little technical, but capital investment is really investments in the country's future, right? Mm-hmm. Infrastructure, roads, hospitals, clinics, classrooms, all of those things. For every dollar that they spent on infrastructure, on these things, they spent 3 on themselves. So extrapolate that, right? With the oil wealth, with the resources that Guyana now has, and you use that ratio, they're going to spend most of that money on themselves, on governing for governance sake, to make themselves comfortable and not investing in Guyana's future. Right? It's less hypothetical because you're using the data that they left behind. You're using the decisions that they made when they were in power. You're using their track record and you're extrapolating it towards to the future.
I'm going to get Bond because he's probably cringing when you're talking about that because he was a part of it.
He was a big part of it.
Yeah, he was. So I'm going to let him say if what you just said is right or not. But there's a question I want to drill down, but I take it that it might not be fair to ask you guys the question. So Bond, you heard him say just now.
Yes, a
He
beautiful
he
question.
accused your government, the party, the government that you were a part
Yeah.
of, in a very integral way,
Yeah.
of financial mismanagement.
I was part of the party that was in government. I was never part of government. As most persons know, Mr. Granger, in all his wisdom, left me out of government.
In all his wisdom.
In all his wisdom. Anyways, that's a beautiful question. Because I want Guyanese to think the same way that you just did. I just spoke to Durban Street and I told them to think just like that. A risk. Let me tell you what happened. I know what happened. The first thing that will happen is that they will go through the list as to who benefited from this government. So all the road contractors, all of you persons who got contracts from the government in your communities to clean the drains, to build the hospitals, to build the schools, you so-called friends, family, and favorites, you so-called house Negroes, house slaves, and lick bottoms, they're going to go and start to excise you and strike you off the record. You're going to be blacklisted. That's the first thing. They will punish the business class in this country. They'll punish the ordinary Guyanese in this country who would have benefited these past 5 years. The police officers that will go voting on the August 22nd, you know what they will do? They will say, all 2,800 of you, you guys got to be friends and families and favorites of the PPP-Civic. You have got to be lick bottoms and house slaves and house Negroes. We're going to demote you. We're going to send you at Monkey Mountain. That's what's going to happen. When they got into power in 2015, what did they do to Chicago workers? Jobless. What did they do to rice farmers? Hopeless. Aubrey Norton can't run Guyana. Just look at Congress Place. Look at the state of Congress Place. And tell me if you think Aubrey Norton, Minister of Bamba Mali, could run this country. Sisters and brothers, my dear friend, Brother Jeffrey.
This is not a political.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I'm warming up.
Yeah.
I'm warming up.
This is not a. This is a conversation.
Yes.
I know you're in the zone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I know
I'm
you're
in that zone.
I know you're in the zone.
I went into that frame of mind.
Yeah.
It will not be nice for Guyana. Everything, think about it. They have zero experience in running a country. Zero experience even to running a department of government. No person who's in this race, from the AFC to the LP to Forward Guyana to win, they've never ran an office or a department in government. Totally inexperienced, neophytes, newbies, mooks. We can't afford to risk anything, the progress we've made so far. So I know what will happen. We will reverse the progress we would have made. I heard the person, I think Brian Max is talking about loans as if borrowing is something bad. No, as a shrewd government, you know how to borrow. And you know you save your money and use other people's monies. And another thing, my friend did not put enough licks when he mentioned the previous government. Do you know that the ministry sent back almost a third of what they were allotted in the budget to spend?
No, stop right there. Stop right there.
They did not even use the enough monies
stop right
from
there.
the various ministries.
Stop right there.
Could I add one?
Wait, before
Yeah.
you go. I want you to stop right there.
Yes, sir.
Because I did not want to say this, and I'm glad that you said it. I interviewed your good friend, Mr. Winston Jordan, a few months ago, and he told me that. He told me that the last government did not have a financial problem.
Yeah.
They had an administrative problem, and that a lot of the money was sent back to the consolidated fund.
I didn't even know he said that.
Yeah, he told me that live on,
Yeah.
on television. So I'm hearing what you say. So it's not.
And sorry, and the money that was spent was not spent wisely. It was not invested in Guyana's future.
Yeah. So you highlighted that. Let me you're going to say something. Let me let you say that.
Yeah, no, just really quickly about the way that our resources have been managed. James touched on it just now, but I don't think a lot of people know that our NRF fund, that's our wealth fund, actually has $3.42 billion in it right now. This is US dollars. As of July 31st, it has grown net of withdrawals. Right at the end of December, it was about 3.1 billion. It has actually grown what we have saved, despite what we have invested in our infrastructure, in our schools, in our clinics, etc. It has actually grown in the last 7 months. It has grown by 10%. Now that outpaces the average growth from some of the larger established sovereign wealth funds in other countries, like Saudi Arabia, for example, that has traditionally hovered around 5 to 15%. It speaks to the way that our resources have been managed.
Okay, so we're coming up to the top of the hour. I know you can't speak fully for the party, but you were sent here to represent the party. So at least I have to try to ask you some tough questions.
But could you, when you invite me to address this issue again?
Yeah.
I know you cut me, when you said you cut me right there.
Yeah.
But invite me on another occasion to address that same
No, I would
scenario.
like to address you.
No,
I mean, I would like to talk to you as a journalist. I'm not talking to you as a journalist tonight.
Yeah.
I'm having a conversation with you guys. But James, I would like to, I won't do it to Alfonso. He's young in this. I might shred him too much. I don't want to watch him bleed.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you don't think so? Don't try me.
I love the confidence, man. I love the confidence. I love confident people. I love confident people.
Don't try me. I know my staff is upstairs probably laughing their head off at your comment, Alfonso. I'm an old Sawaki.
I love
57. I've been doing this since I was 19. But let me ask, when you speak of the work that the PPP has been doing over the last 5 years, a lot of people have challenges with thinking that it's top heavy, that there are certain the contracts are being given out across the board, but a lot of the money is remaining, and that's the term that you just repeated here, friends, favorites, and so on. Is there a plan to make that not how to say it? So it wouldn't be a challenge in a new administration? Is the government working at leveling the playing field? What are you here? Because I know you're hearing the same thing when you go out there. And when you guys huddle, how is the government planning to address that issue? Let me start with Alfonso, James. I'll come to you.
Yeah, no, that's not true. I mean, you've said something, but there's not much evidence, not much data. As you can tell,
you've heard that.
I'm a data guy.
Yeah.
Right. That speaks to that. What is true, and what we can say for certain is that all across the country, communities have been developed through contracts that were given to the people who live in those very communities. Now that is a fact. That is a fact. So I don't know about that friends, family, and favorites thing is a moniker. It's an accusation with not much data behind it. But when you look at how community roads, the drains that have been cleaned, that have been built, the way that communities have developed all across the country, have not those improvements were not done by large favored contractors. They were done by and large by the very members of those communities, right? And that is a fact. That's the truth. So that assertion there, it's more of an accusation that has been hurled by a political opposition as a political talking point, with not much behind it. When you look at it, it falls flat.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to let James take a jab at it. Like I said, I'm tempted to go journalistic with you, but I'm not going to do that now. James, take a shot at it. No, because I don't want to. I don't think. Let me just digress here. I don't think that you guys are in a position to answer some of the questions. Of course, we're going to have some other folks come on who I will be.
But when you ask a question, or when you launch, or when you ask a question, or when you say something, right? Should have some sort of evidence or some data behind it, right?
Yeah.
Because a question can be construed to be a fact, but it's not necessarily.
Right. So I'm just asking because I know you're hearing these things as you go there. But go ahead.
We're not out there. I'm hearing them. I see them on Facebook. Like, for example,
someone
I called my pastor, said, "Oh, name me one black contractor that is the like of Avinash." Well, I didn't give him one, I gave him two. Then he says, what was the value of the contracts? And I gave them, I said these were all billion-dollar contracts. Now you can't call these guys friends, family, and favorite of the People's Progressive Party Civic. Now the bidding process is very competitive. Government has nothing to do with the bidding process. The government simply puts out the works, whether the bid is there, you have to submit your bid. And most naturally, the laws of the Procurement Act will follow it and ensue. So the lowest responsive bidder, or the persons who qualified, who met the criteria to do the contract, will get the job done. But you know what has happened? More persons, as a result of the policies of the People's Progressive Party Civic, are benefiting from these government contracts.
That's true.
More small and first-time contractors in the history of our country. And Pastor Jeffrey, this is a fact. The People's Progressive Party Civic have created more millionaires than any other government. Let's look at Region 10. In the past 2 years, $18 billion went to small and first-time contractors. They have amended the Procurement Act to ensure that ordinary young men and women in these communities get contracts of $13 and $15 million. Instead of lumping the contracts together, they've divided it up, put it in lots, so that every single Guyanese could get a chance at the pie. Let me take Melanie. That's why I love my job. You know, walking in them communities and meeting people. I've helped more persons in 5 months of being a member of the PPP-Civic than in 14 years of being a member of the PNC. I've created more businessmen, more millionaires within 5 months of being with the People's Progressive Party Civic than 14 years with PNC. How does that happen?
Yeah.
How?
You got it. No, but
The
I understand.
People's
I understand.
Progressive Party Civic. Every community we go to. Today I was walking in North Vigilance. I saw a lovely house, brown. I saw the woman. Good evening, ma'am. You may see this one day. I comment to her, love your home. You know what she told me? Is the PPP build it? I said, what do you mean by the PPP build it? She said, my husband is a contractor. This is not joke and fun. This is life, I'm telling you. North Vigilance. Good night. Good night, North Vigilance.
Right. Thank you. So we're at the top of the hour now. So let me do this here. Let me give you an opportunity to look in your camera and tell one person why they should vote for the PPP. Go.
Because the PPP is a party that keeps its promises. It has a long and storied track record of success. It has taken Guyana from the brink of collapse, from an economy where you couldn't afford to import chalk for the university, to one of the most successful economies in the world. The policies that have been espoused, that have been followed, that have been implemented, and that will be implemented by the People's Progressive Party speak to a long-term vision and long-term development, not just of our citizens, but of their children and their children's children. The rest, they focus on spending, they focus on the now, and they will ultimately lead, if God forbid they're ever implemented, to the destruction of our country. I believe that. The People's Progressive Party's policies are grounded in a framework that is connected, that makes sense, and that is realistic and based and not grounded in any sort of fantasy or story world. That is the difference.
Thank you. Closing, James. Look in the camera. Tell the person why they should vote for the PPP.
Just look at me. Just look at me. You know, PNC, now PPP. Why? This president we have called Mohamed Irfan Ali is the best president Guyana could have asked for in this moment. He's done the impossible, uniting our country. You've never seen so many Afro-Guyanese with the PPP than now. You've never seen it. Durban and Louisa now is full of Afro-Guyanese, young Afro-Guyanese supporting the PPP. We support the PPP-Civic because they care about us. They don't want to see us impoverished. They don't want to see us suffering. That is why we support them. That is why I support them. Progress, development. It is something every Guyanese should hope and aspire for. Only president to ever say wealth. We want our people to be wealthy. If you want to have a future for yourself and your family, leave an inheritance for them, vote PPPC.
Well said. Thank you very much.
Good seeing you again, sir.
Thank you very
Bro,
much.
It was
Right?
nice. It was nice.
Folks, I
meeting
want to thank you for joining us on Elections Insights. Again, this discussion is open to any party, right? You come, you get a chance to share, ask you some reasonable questions, and you get a chance to convince the Guyanese populace as to why they should choose your party. Until the next installment, God bless you. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.